John, thank you so much for your time. First question I've got for you. It feels like sport is evolving so quickly at the moment. Is this unique for now, or is this comparable to any other previous time across your career?
I don't think we've ever seen a time like what we're living in just because of the effect of technology and the massive impact that smartphones have had on people all over the country, the advent of artificial intelligence, the ascent of streaming. There's sort of like a Moore's law
Hmm.
that's now at play here, and the pace of change just seems to be accelerating. So we feel it in all of our lives, and we certainly feel that way in sports.
Yeah. I know in America, and for our fans that listen around the world, every January, the president usually steps up and does a State of the Union. So I'm going to ask you, President Kosner, will you step up right now and give us a state of the world of sport, whether it's financial, player empowerment, the money that's exchanging hands, leagues? Where do you think the state of sport is right now?
Well, sports has never been more popular. It has never been more important, in part because it's the only sort of differentiated content in a world where so much of one's entertainment is now available on demand and largely for free. Sports is the only content that you have to watch live. It's the only content that is unifying, where it really doesn't matter what our political points of view is, our sexual orientation. Everybody can get together and root for a side. And it's taking off at a period of time where traditional pay television in the U.S. is shrinking. There's more and more media fragmentation. And the collective impact of that has also changed our relationships with athletes. Athletes now, thanks to social media, in many cases have bigger following than the teams and leagues that they play for. Fans can have a direct involvement in their lives, which just wasn't possible before. Here in the US, college athletes for the first time are being paid, and a lot of that is done through the rollout of name, image, and likeness programs, where each athlete controls his or her own marketing. We have seen the growth of women's sports, and that's also powered by how effective female athletes are in general compared to male athletes on social media. So there's a ton of stuff going on. The business continues to grow. The Lakers, the approval of their $10 billion acquisition is coming. That has influenced the market for NFL teams, EPL clubs, etc. So tremendous change, tremendous growth. But the headline, I believe, is that sports has never mattered more.
Mm. Is it true that sport, and do you believe this? It's been said often that sport is recession proof.
I don't believe that anything is recession proof. I don't believe that anything is not subject to risk or problems. But sports has this connection to its fan base that I believe enables it to power through difficult times. And we may yet see some unprecedented things. So I don't feel it's recession proof, but I feel it's the strongest content genre by far. And it has this evergreen hold on its fans that is unique in media. Meaning, if you're a fan of Manchester City, you'll always be a fan of Manchester City. It's not like most terrific TV shows. After 7 years or so, even the best shows fade off. In sports, we have that evergreen interest.
We're speaking with John Kosner, who has a lot of experience in the world of sports, not only with ESPN, his time at CBS Sports, Sports Illustrated, the NBA. And you've kind of already answered this question, John. Athletes being more powerful now than they've ever been. But what are some of the positives and maybe negative effects of that development?
Well, I think the positives are, it's good for the athletes, and we root for athletes. I believe it's given them an opportunity to connect with their fan base in the way that wasn't possible before. It certainly lends itself to any amount of commercial opportunities increasing. It's going to be interesting going forward whether athletes, especially the top athletes, will be satisfied not being equity holders in the leagues that they play in. In terms of the negatives, certainly team sports are team sports, and the best teams are able to have a cohesiveness and a collective belief that is important to protect. As athletes become increasingly more and more powerful individually, will they still subjugate themselves into the team construct that will enable them to win championships? Will the motivation to win and to show up and play be as strong going forward? But to me, this era of growing value and rights for athletes, I believe it's overdue, and it just raises the pressure on everybody else to raise their game. If an athlete has a bigger following than his or her team or league, then it's also incumbent upon the team or league to improve what they're doing and how they're communicating and the efforts they're making to build their own brands.
You bring up the league, and I think that's a great transition. I think some leagues, obviously, you work for the NBA, you're well aligned with a lot of the American leagues. But do you think, let's say, leagues like the R360, pulling apart club rugby, LIV Golf, Six Kings Slams in tennis, are they prepared right now? Do they have the infrastructure and the finances to make a go of this with this player empowerment that it seems to be having its own new renaissance?
Well, I mean, we're certainly seeing the springing up of new leagues and new types of attractions. In Europe, the Kings League soccer, the Baller League, entities that are built around influencers and use of social media and free distribution, those are proliferating. However, the sports calendar, especially in the United States, is very crowded. People look forward to the big events, and the big events provide context. It's not just that Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are the numbers 1 and 2 or 2 and 1 top tennis player. It's the context of them meeting at Wimbledon or at the finals of the French Open or the U.S. Open. So I don't believe that that's necessarily so easy to replicate. There have been a lot of efforts to create sort of, standalone events in boxing or tennis or other sports, but they don't necessarily mean as much to the fans. And one of the reasons is they don't mean as much to the players. If you're a golf fan and you watch the Masters, you can clearly see how important it is to the players. That matters. LIV Golf has invested a lot of money and they've gathered a lot of the top golfers, but they've yet to really gain traction. For a golf fan at the moment, it just feels like a split environment where what you want most, which is the best playing the best on Saturday and Sunday afternoon, you don't seem to get that enough. It's going to be interesting with Brian Rowlap taking over at the PGA Tour, how discussions progress with LIV, whether those two entities come together. Certainly fans want to see the best golfers competing against each other. That's not where we are right now.
Let's dip into our world. I mean, you spent decades at ESPN building up their ESPN Digital magazine, CBS, NBA. What responsibility do broadcasters, what responsibility do we have, not only networks, but as announcers in this whole mixed mash of gameplay and money and all that stuff? Can we be too much of a part of it, and do we need to let it just grow organically and see what the fans want?
I really believe one of the most powerful things about sports, especially in our current world, is that it has winners and losers. And in general, those are not in dispute. I think announcers serve a crucial function in protecting the integrity of the games that we watch, taking it seriously, providing feature material to have you get to know the players and teams better and get more interested in them. We've been rocked by scandals, whether it's what's going on with the LA Clippers or the investigation into the finances and the EPL. There have been betting scandals. So we look to broadcasters to be fair to us, to inform us, to tell us what's going on, to help us enjoy the games, to help us get to know the players better in an increasingly fragmented media landscape. I know I really appreciate those announcers who do their homework, for whom, like I can listen to watch a game and learn something. That's never gone out of fashion, and is probably even more important now that it's not totally clear where we need to go to get our news and information anymore. That's not as straightforward.
I want to pivot with you for a second and just what do you attribute the growth, the massive growth over the last 2-3 years to women's sports? The draw, the attention, the financial growth. Obviously, the WNBA is going through a bit of a change, maybe some growing pains there. But across the board, women's sports seems to be, and excuse the phrase, a hot ticket right now.
So you've got, in the United States, you've got 50 years of Title IX, which really changed college sports and invested in high quality women's programs. You've seen the incredible evolution of female athletes just over that period of time. It's also been a factor of having breakthrough athletes. In women's basketball, the ascension of Caitlin Clark. For me, in my lifetime, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Caitlin Clark are the only 4 athletes that have been able to get fans who didn't care, weren't interested, to turn on and watch a sport. I'm not saying that Caitlin is yet obviously their equal, but I'm just saying the phenomenon that we've seen with her reminds me of what we experienced that built basketball, golf, and of course boxing. In the UK, there's traditionally been less interest in women's soccer than there has been in the US, where the 1999 FIFA World Cup champion USA national team spawned interest that we've seen all this century. However, the ascension of the Lionesses and the Women's World Cup, the Euro, we see the growth and development and interest in women's soccer, not only in the U.S. but also in the U.K. I believe the Super League and NWSL are going to be increasingly and entertaining competitors for each other in terms of player recruiting and attention on television. But in the U.S., there's just no question to me that Title IX helped make this happen. Athleticism has gotten better, and then you have the galvanizing athlete in the case of Caitlin Clark that really has raised interest, much more significant interest in women's professional basketball. I think that that's only going to grow going forward.
John Kosner making some great points with us here on This Sporting Planet. John, just a few more questions and we'll get you out of here. I just have to ask you, and I want to reiterate what you were just saying. I feel like it doesn't matter if it's men or women, whatever. I think people, especially in the U.S. audiences, if it's compelling, if it's good competition, if it's well covered, people will watch it. And so when you look at the competition and the way it's packaged now, and you've seen this over 3 decades of your experience in the media, do you see the shrinking attention span, whether it's the use of cell phones, whatever, that people now just want a smaller packaged area and they'll be happy watching the highlights the next day or shortly thereafter? They are not going to sit down and watch a 2 or 3 hour match.
That's certainly the conventional wisdom, is that people are watching fewer complete games, that younger generations can follow sports on social media channels and enjoy short form highlights, etc. In the U.S., it's been a little confounding because Nielsen, which is the measurement of record for TV viewing in our country, has undergone a whole big data change in calendar year 2025, including 100% coverage of out-of-home viewing. As a result, the Nielsen TV ratings for football so far and for the baseball playoffs have been way up. And so if it were true that people were watching less or watching fewer full-time games, it doesn't seem to be evident in the numbers. Perhaps the Nielsen data indicates that interest always was there. It just wasn't properly calculated. Nonetheless, and I'm sure, Todd, you can tell from your own experience, it's unusual to watch a sporting event now without at least your mobile phone handy. I still enjoy sitting and watching a full-length game, and I get fulfillment out of it, but it's harder for my children to do that versus paying attention to something else. And I think this also raises the ante for announcers and production crews, working the games to make sure that there's interesting, compelling content. When I was growing up, I was always fascinated by the job that Roone Arledge and ABC Sports did with the Olympics, and up close and personal, and getting you to know who the competitors were and caring about them, even if you didn't know them or care about their sport. I still think that's as important as ever.
And I guess the next big $1 million question for me and my family is, will I have a job in 10 years as a traditional play-by-play announcer? And will TV still be covered in a linear way that it is right now? Or is it going to change?
Yes and yes. But it's going to be supplemented. And it's possible that you might find various different ways of delivering game coverage in the future versus just the sort of straight ahead version that is favored at the moment. I believe what you're going to see is multiple feeds and different audio versions of games that include hometown coverage, focus on specific parts of the game, whether it's strategy or otherwise, influencer channels, etc. So things are likely to get more fragmented, but those who are good, those who work hard, are going to continue to get employment, and more games are going to be broadcast. So I'm bullish that you're going to continue your own great career.
John, we'll get you out here on this. You've had such a varied career. You've got Bob Iger and Adam Silver on speed dial, and you've worked at some of the big houses with ESPN and the NBA, Sports Illustrated. Are there any lessons that you've learned that have sustained you and you've carried forward, regardless of technology advancements, regardless of the way things have changed, that have just been bedrocks of good decision making, good broadcast journalism, good sports coverage that you think the next generation can learn from?
I think it's really important, and in any editorial context, to really focus on what the most important thing is happening at the moment and make sure that you are answering that question, making it easy to find that information. And while it sounds kind of obvious, if you go to different websites today and you have a sense of what you think is important, it's not always reflected where you go. And so it's really important for leaders to say, no, at this moment, this is what matters most. I'm going to be on top of it. I'll make sure that we're on top of it. And then, especially in an era of AI, developing, maintaining, cultivating your personal relationships. Super important to be somebody who's helpful to other people, who's not transactional. I tell people all the time that your next job opportunity is almost always going to come from somebody who knows you or has worked with you. And so, cultivating those relationships, valuing them, being there for other people has a way of inuring to your own benefit. So, and it's just a lot more fun to have strong personal relationships. So those are really the two things, the sort of pyramid theory, focusing on what's important and having the discipline to stay that way. And then second, really valuing and investing in your own personal relationships.
He is the pride of Stanford University. John Kosner, thanks for joining us on This Sporting Planet.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.